I resign. That's it.
Finally, we forced him out.
Yeah, but I'm not going. I'm not going quite yet.
Takeover has succeeded, Spence.
Yeah, but I'm not going quite yet. It'd be about another 3 months. But anyway.
Anyway, it's been a nice day today, hasn't it?
It's been absolutely
nice and warm. Indeed.
Well, it's been hellish.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, grow up, both of you.
No,
utterly hellish.
No.
Honestly, we get like 1 day a year where it's like this, and all you two do.
Yeah, John and I are still campaigning to have that overruled.
Yeah, one day too many, if you ask me. But yeah, it's just anyway. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the interesting whinging company. It's good to start off as we mean to go on tonight. Whinging.
Yeah, absolutely.
It has been. Let's just say, for those of you who don't live in the UK, we've had essentially 6 months of winter, and now suddenly the summer's turned up. It's like it's like getting off. It's like boarding an aeroplane one day in the freezing cold, and then getting off and being hit by a subtropical heat wave. Fair assessment, isn't it?
Well, it's just we're not cut out for it. We're not used to it.
We're not cut out for it, no.
Simply.
No. No.
You know,
I know Dave.
when I complain about the temperature in the UK, there's no point in you, if you're from Portugal, showing me your weather that says it's 43 degrees. It's you know, I get that it's hotter, but it's essentially a pointless comparison to make.
I have to say as well, though, I mean, I think it was like Thursday or something. That's how ridiculous this weather is. Thursday, I was genuinely shivering. It was cold. And I was like, I kept on saying to Les, well, surely hasn't the summer arrived at some point? And then it sort of started to arrive on Friday. And then yesterday, it was like basically somebody had turned the oven on and opened the door. That's kind of where we were. It's. And I was saying off air as well. I've basically had 2 days off. It's weekend, and I didn't really want to do anything. But yesterday I did some gardening, and then I sanded this voodoo down. And then today I thought, well, now that it's sanded down, I'll just spray all the joints over and see what they're looking like. And I was spraying paint in here that was at least 60% thinners, and it was a very pale grey, almost white. That's because voodoo grey, the Canadian colour, is basically just off-white from what I can see. And so I was spraying it. And I was able to build up a very opaque layer of this very pale grey in about 30 seconds flat, bearing in mind it was essentially just thinners. Because it was just, I came in here and it just went...
Yeah, I mean, I always used to wonder at people from other countries saying, you know, talking about the humidity and the heat and all this sort of stuff when they're airbrushing and how much. And I'm like, you know, in the UK where it's effectively temperate 24/7, 365, where, you know, regardless of us complaining about it hitting the mid-20s and we're not being used to it and all the rest of it, it's temperate. And going, I don't understand what the issue is here. Why don't you just put it in the airbrush, thin it, and spray it? And then you get a genuinely hot day, and you go, all right, all right, I get it.
It also makes a huge difference as well. All of us use lacquers as well, but it also makes a huge difference because I've been experimenting with water-based acrylics like Vallejo, and I know, Drew, you've been using AK's 3G paints. You try brush painting with that stuff when effectively your workroom, like it is in here, I mean, it's hard for you to picture what it's about 90 degrees in here at the moment because I'm south facing and it's a flat roof, and it's been like this for the last 2 days. So in here it is literally sweltering. you can't paint with those paints unless they're like 80% water and you sort of build them up that way. It's almost impossible. They're drying on the brush before it even gets to the
I mean, I sometimes I'll open a pot of Mysticolor or something, and I generally tend to have it sat open next to me, and I kind of load the airbrush with a brush full and a bit of thinner as I'm going. If I need a bit more, I put a bit of thinner in the brush cup, get a brush full of it, and stir it in. And at the moment, I'm finding I go back to get another brush full of the paint, and there's already a skin over it in a minute.
Yes,
over
indeed,
the top.
yeah.
Now, it doesn't matter because it's a lacquer, and as soon as it hits the thinner, it'll just dissolve into paint. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
But it's very, very noticeable that, within a minute of that pot being open and sat next to me, ready to use, there's already a skin forming over it, which would have utterly destroyed, a pot of Humbrol or Airfix back in the day. But it doesn't make any difference with it being a lacquer.
No. I remember when we were sort of coming through our formative years, you used to be able to go to mold shops and buy quick drying thinners. You remember? First time I saw it was in like those little kind of rectangular tins that you would get with the screw lid and the little plug in there. And I think they were designed. The first time I saw them, I think they were for model railways. That was where I first saw them. This quick flash thinners. And then I think Extra Colour did it, didn't they? They did these things.
Yeah, XDT or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, and we buy them in order to flash off the paint we were using. All you need to do these days is just wait for a hot day and just spray them and do it that way. So
it's interesting there. Jim Altegott says no air conditioning system in your home, Spencer. We have this kind of this national debate every year, and the thing is, Jim, that in the UK, days like this are so, relatively speaking, rare that there's just no point in people just don't buy or have air conditioning installed in houses.
I don't know. Do you know anybody that's got air conditioning in their house? I don't know anybody that has.
No, we simply we don't do it. People, if this hot spell was to last for say 2 weeks, by the end of that 2 weeks, people would be buying every mobile air conditioning unit in the country they could find.
Indeed,
because that's the way it always works. But in terms of air conditioning is not part of construction in the UK.
Not at all.
It's the same with our houses are designed to keep heat in, whereas if you go to somewhere like Australia, they have houses with big verandas, covered verandas and stuff like that. They're raised. They're designed to let heat out. So
absolutely.
The actual construction of houses matters as much as the weather for this sort of thing.
Well, the last two nights, I've been out and had a couple of pints in the local kind of wine bar in town, and they've got a brilliant air conditioning unit in there, and people are going in there just for the air conditioning because even pubs in the UK don't have air conditioning. You can go into in town. There are half a dozen pubs. I'm pretty sure that there's only 1 or 2 of them have got air conditioning in them. It's just not normal, is it? It's not the sort of thing that you would get in those kind of
no, because like I say, the usage case just doesn't add up in the UK.
No, it doesn't. No, not with the cost of fuel. Not with the cost of fuel in the UK at the moment.
Oh no.
And we'll all be standing there with. It'll all be like we'll have little fans that will come on here. And,
I've got a 2 foot high sort of vertical fan thing here, just blowing cool air over me. But even that's just within sort of 10 minutes of turning on in this small model room, you're just recirculating hot air. But it's still, at least it's still blowing it over. Over your skin, so it's not too bad. But no, it's just aircon is not a thing in the UK. I don't think it's a thing in Europe really either.
No, I don't think so. I mean, certainly, but it was noticeable today how I've had this effect before. I think I told this story a long time ago. I don't know if you guys remember. I built a Tamiya Mosquito, a little 72nd scale one for a book, going back quite a while now, 5-6 years or something for work. And it was a really tight deadline, and I had to hit this deadline over a period when it was like it is now. So it was up into 30 degrees or whatever, and that was when I had the shed, and in the shed it was topping well over 100 degrees for thought. I think it was like a couple of weeks or something we had it at the time. And I was in there working on this model. And it got to the point, I mean, a mental image, but it got to the point where I was literally just down to my shorts. I couldn't wear anything else. It was so hot in there. But I think at the time I might have painted that model actually with enamels as well. But it was drying that fast in there that I was able to kind of, just leave it overnight and work on it. But I was trying to detail paint in there, and it was just horrific. And even having, like you have, having a fan on in there didn't really make any difference, because all it was just circulating warm air around me all the time. So,
well, my old workshop down the end of the garden in the Anderson shelter, and it's a genuine World War II corrugated iron Anderson shelter.
Wow.
Yeah, that's like the cooler from The Great Escape in there. It really was. It was just. I gave up modelling in there, and just to sit there with a baseball mitt and a glove, just banging a ball against the wall. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
right, we have got a lot of things to talk about tonight. In fact, so much that I'm going to have to put half the pictures in, and then when we've discussed that, is upload the next batch of pictures, because there's too many to actually load up tonight. So. We are going to go. I know. It's just the limits of the streaming system. We are going to go to this, which is Border Model.
Surgeon.
Yeah, Border Model have announced a 35th scale Nakajima Kate. Now, immediately, we'll come back to the scale in a minute, but in terms of a model, I know we're always kind of like running out of superlatives for things, but this looks absolutely phenomenal. It really does look just utterly mind-blowing. I don't know what you two.
It looks. I mean, just like the Stuka, it looks absolutely glorious, doesn't it? It just, there is nothing about that doesn't make me want to build it. Well, except for the obvious thing, but
well, no, let's talk about the elephant in the room, shall we? Because Border are determined to stick with 1/35th as a new scale for aircraft, which we've said this on the show before. Are there enough Arma modelers who want to build aircraft in their scale, or are there enough aircraft modelers who want to build an aircraft in an Arma scale?
It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, I don't like the choice of scale, but the kit looks fantastic. I just think it's it's trying to start a new fad where one's not really needed. I don't know what Spencer thinks.
Well, yeah. I mean, personally, it doesn't interest me at all. I've got to put that out there first of all. It genuinely doesn't. It looks magnificent from the photographs. So on a purely objective, subjective level, I'm looking at it and thinking, yeah, that's kind of that looks really superb. The detail looks amazing. Those renders make it certainly look incredible. It's not in my sphere of interest at all. I'm not really that interested in. I've built a few Japanese aircraft, but not really interested in Second World War Japanese aircraft at all. So this isn't something I can ever conceive of building, because it just isn't of interest. As a prototype, as a kit, it looks great, and I think it's a very interesting choice. This sort of preoccupation with 35th scale aircraft, I really just don't understand it at all. I don't understand it. The only way I understand this, and the only way that I can think that this is a good idea, is if you have in some way desire to build our Armas, and you want to incorporate those aircraft with figures and vehicles. There is no getting away from it, and I don't care what anybody says, and I will argue this until I'm blue in the face. You put a 32nd scale aircraft next to a 35th scale vehicle, and the discrepancy in size and scale is immediately obvious. It's immediate. It's not like 76 and 72nd, where the smaller scales tend to work together. You put those two things together, and it is literally obvious that they are a different scale. I've seen fantastic dioramas. There's a couple of guys in particular who make dioramas that are works of art. But you put an aircraft next to a 35th scale vehicle in 1 in 32nd, 1 in 35th, it is noticeable. You put a 32nd scale Sherman next to a 35th scale Sherman, and the difference in size is startling, even though they are very close bedfellows. They're much bulkier. So it makes a difference. So I understand it from that point of view. I understand that a 35th scale vehicle, a 35th scale aircraft going with 35th scale vehicles makes sense. I don't understand it on any other level, because you already have modelers who are going to have built a huge number of 32nd scale aircraft, and all of a sudden you're going to have a collection of 35th scale aircraft which are noticeably smaller. Put them side by side, and part of that, remember the huge amount of consternation that was caused when Edward produced their 109G, and it was, and they said it, and despite the fact that in terms of an overall picture, it was okay. You know, it had issues, but it was okay. And they were going, well, it's not 48th. It's actually like 46th or something. And it was like, you can't put the two things together. It's kind of noticeable. So I sort of get that. I just don't understand why you would want to kind of push that idea, unless Border have decided that they want constant scale. All of their whatever subject they do is going to be 35th. And that's going to be it, and that's how they're going to kind of run with this. I agree with Jerry. What Jerry's put, scale is irrelevant. It's irrelevant to me as well. I build in every scale, so I'm not bothered about the scale, and I've built 50th and 48th scale aircraft as well. So I'm not sort of bothered about the idea of that. I just don't understand in this case why they feel the need to push aircraft into a scale that they've not really belonged to before. I know there've been helicopters in that scale. I get all of that. But I don't know. I just feel that this model would appeal to a far broader audience if it was 32nd scale.
Well, in terms of if it was 32nd, you've got stuff like the Tamiya Zero, you've got the Zukumura stuff, you know, the Jake and stuff like that, and then you've got sort of Hasegawa's KI-84 and KI-44 and stuff like that, and so you've actually got in the last 15 or 20 years a really significant core of Japanese World War II subjects you can build in 1/32nd scale, and something that hasn't been covered in 32nd scale suddenly turns up in 35th. It's, you know, it's got to be, you know, I would just be, if that was my scale, if 32nd was my scale, and I was more interested in Japanese World War II than I would just feel incredibly frustrated by that. Like I say, I'm the same as you. I don't really have any interest in the subject. I wouldn't buy it. But I'm not really understanding, I guess, in corporate speak, I'm not really understanding the use case.
Stan says Bandai are releasing a 35th scale 1989 Batmobile kit. Strange scale for cars. Yeah, I kind of like. I'm just thinking, because you do get
cars tend to be 32nd or 24th, don't they?
Yeah, but then we do have 35th scale cars, because we have 35th scale. We've had some 35th scale Mercedes saloon cars. We've had what are they called? God, brain gone blank again. Somebody did a series of Toyota Hiluxes. Meng.
Yeah.
So we are getting vehicles, you know, VW Beetles, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we are
getting Jerry's made an interesting point there. He says Rubicon do 50th scale armor, but isn't 50th scale 28 mil?
That's 56
scale.
56 scale.
Yeah. 50, whatever Rubicon's is. Yeah. Isn't that 28 mil? Isn't that already?
Yeah, that is an established scale, and so all they've done is moved into making a slightly different product.
I don't know. Listen, it makes it sound like I'm being churlish, and I don't mean to be churlish, because obviously from the renders we've seen of the kit, it looks great. It does look great. It looks like a magnificent piece of work. I just can't fathom why they've
every time I see that 35th scale Stuka on the shelf, I'm tempted to buy it.
Yeah,
you know, it's really because it's a subject that I, very late Stukas is a subject I really like. It's clearly everything about that kit that I've seen says it's utterly magnificent. I just can't make that leap.
Yeah, but I mean, like I say, there would be certain things that would be of interest to me, Drew. If somebody, for instance, if they suddenly came out and did a 35th scale Spitfire, they did a 35th scale 109, but they did 35th scale, that would open it up for me to be able to do a diorama of, I like the idea of one that's crashed or something like that, and done a belly landing, and you could have figures with it, and you could have, a Austin Tilley or something. You can have some of the vehicles that are around it, those kind of things. It would work for me as a subject, but with this one, it doesn't really work on that level, because there isn't really anything else that can kind of go with it, is there? In terms of sort of figures and those sort of things.
No, to me, it's a bit like Edouard deciding going forward that they want to be able to do dioramas in car scale, so they're switching their aircraft to 1/43rd scale.
Yeah, although
theoretically it shouldn't matter, but it's still
sort of thoughts about why do we have 24th and 25th? I get all sorts of confused about things like that. We have 24 scale aircraft, but we have 25th scale cars and trucks. And
I think a lot of those are just hangovers.
1% different.
That's just a hangover from the metric imperial things, isn't it? The companies that did 1/25th were from metric companies, and others stuck to 24th, which is an imperial scale. I think that's the same with 1/48th and 1/50th, isn't it?
Yeah. Although somebody will say to me, "I bet you put 1/24th and 1/25th together and never moaned about it." Well, maybe. I who knows? Who knows?
All I will say on that this scale controversy is that Shep Payne and Francois Verlinden and Louis Prenot, they all mixed 35th scale and 32nd scale together, and never bothered me.
Did they though, John? I don't recall situations where there were 32nd scale. Where Louis Prenot might have. He might have had 35th scale aircraft.
Yeah, Francois Verlinden has mixed 35th scale aircraft, 32nd scale aircraft, 35th scale vehicles. I think in one of the Verlinden books, he did a thing where he mixed a monogram 32nd scale Mack truck and put a 35th scale T55 on the back of it.
That wasn't one of that's not Francois' model. He painted it. He didn't build that. That's not his model.
But it's in one of his books.
There is, yes, I agree. You're right.
By proxy, he was agreeing with the principle.
Yeah,
so,
yes, it was. Yeah, there is.
I think he has done it actually, but no, it's horses for courses. People they do what they do.
Oh, it's happened a million times. People have done it a million times, and to great effect. And I'm not denigrating the work at all. I just think I can see it. If I look at it, I can sort of notice it, and it makes the vehicles look much smaller than they are, and I find that sort of it's jarring to me. Would I be tempted to mix them if I needed to, and I had an idea in mind? Probably. I would sort of go against my better judgment, but it doesn't sort of stop me sort of feeling.
I would also say in that instance, Spencer, a lot of it would be down to the composition of the diorama as well.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, that's certainly something that's the case. And where it, I suppose, matters little, or is if you had, for instance, 32nd scale vehicle with 35th scale figures, because we're all of a similar height and 6 foot ish, but I've got friends who are 5'5", 5'6", so you could have a 54 mil figure, 32nd scale figure, and you could have one in 35th, and the discrepancy in heights would work because people are different heights, aren't they? It's not a constant. So it kind of work in that situation. But I think it's a debate that you can add endlessly, isn't it? Yeah. Really.
I mean, we're all of a similar. We all seem to be of a similar feeling here. That there's nothing wrong with it, and it looks magnificent. We're just a bit quizzical.
Yeah,
it's just that it doesn't even reach being a criticism for me. It's just a kind of kind of feeling.
Yes, just
You know,
an eyebrow raised, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, it's
Well,
not.
But
I
I mean,
think we
certainly from having seen the kits, they do look brilliant, don't they? I mean, the 109 looked amazing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we'll skip ahead. We'll leave the controversy behind. Controversy corner.
Onto the next controversy.
Well, this isn't controversy. This is awesome sauce. This is because this is ICM, our friends ICM in Ukraine, and they have now released their Gotha. I always say Gotha, but apparently it's Gotha. Go242B.
I always call it Gotha as well. There you go.
Yeah, apparently no, it's Gotha. I'm told by people in the know. I saw one of these at the model show in Western-super-Mare today. Somebody had actually built one. Would you believe?
Oh, really?
But yeah. But this does look, again, this is ICM. This does look the business. This does. I will say though, of the two variants, I prefer the powered one. But
I was going to say there was a powered one, wasn't there?
There was a powered one. Italeri did a 72nd scale kit, which included the glider and the powered one, and they included in the very first releases a little Kugelwagen to go in there as well. So in 72nd scale, not 76, just to stop that argument. But yeah, this is ICM's Gotha 242B, which, far as I know, this is the first time anybody's done this in 48 scale.
Actually, it's an attractive little aeroplane, isn't it? I quite like it.
It's quite cool, isn't it?
Yeah. It's, you know, I've always kind of skipped by it because gliders and stuff don't really interest me that much. But you kind of look at that and you go, actually, that's quite an interesting little aeroplane. Quite like that.
Can you have the rear open? Is it the rear that opens up to? Can you have that?
It
open,
is,
or
and I think you can in the kit, but these are just photographs of their built-up model. We'll try and dig out some more in-depth stuff of the actual breakdown of the kit. In fact, whilst you're talking next, I might actually go onto the ICM website and see if I can grab the instructions for that. In fact, that's just what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to go.
That's an interesting little subject. I quite.
I would imagine it's not that big as well. It doesn't.
No, it's probably it's going to be about the same size as maybe, I don't know, a Mosquito.
Mosquito. I was going to say, I saw it today, and it did look about Mosquito size. The thing
in twin boom Lightning, maybe.
Yeah, the thing that throws you in terms of its size is how chunky and thick that fuselage is.
Yeah.
Tends to give it more of a kind of an impression of it being a larger model, larger aircraft than it is. But in terms of wingspan and length, no, it's not massively massive, to use a method to mix my metaphors.
I could certainly see me wanting to build one of these because I do think it's cute. I think it's got potential to be something that's interesting to put together, and yeah, I do like it. I mean, obviously, multiple uses for these things. They would be heavily weathered and chipped up and that kind of thing. So yeah, so you're pretty much limited to single use, aren't you? They're not going to be overly degraded machines, I wouldn't think.
I mean, they're not going to be used on multiple operations, are they?
No,
the powered ones were, but
the powered ones maybe, but the gliders, I think you're sort of limited with your approach to the model. But even so, I think with all that glazing and everything, the finish would probably be quite would be quite sort of new. Or very new looking, but you could have some fun with the interior and everything. The reason why I asked about whether or not you could open up the rear, your mention of the Kugelwagen, obviously, to me, I do 48 scale Kugelwagen, so you could do a little diorama around that one being loaded up and some figures around it. That would be kind of cool, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the idea of that.
Plus, it's got that kind of, for me these days, it's ICM, which catches my eye immediately because that barring flood, fire, or disaster, it's going to be a really, really enjoyable build.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
And
it also, it's one of those things as well, and I'm sure that somebody's going to send me a message and go, actually, Spence, we have exceptions to that rule. It is that twin boom aircraft on the whole tend to be really attractive little things, don't they?
Yeah.
I can't think of too many aircraft that have got twin booms that aren't lovely and that I wouldn't want to build, to be honest. Possibly that big bloated development of the the Lightning.
But you know what? I was just about to say the XP58 chain Lightning is. I think.
Yes.
I think the best thing to say about that aeroplane is it probably had a nice personality.
Probably did. Yes, it was going to be the loudest in the group. It's just a horrible looking thing. I saw some photographs of it the other day, and I was kind of looking at it, and it said, oh, you know, it was developed from the Lightning, and I was like,
yeah, I think it was a Hush Kit or something on Twitter. Yeah, it's got twin booms and a man in the front. That's about it, really.
Yes.
But yeah, I think it was at Hush Kit Aviation on Twitter or somebody like that. They posted a load of pictures of it, didn't they?
That's right. Yeah, I think that's where I saw it. I saw it on Twitter, and there was a couple of things. That's one of those places, actually. I mean, you've sort of Twitter's got for anybody that's not on Twitter, and for modelling and for aircraft enthusiasts like us, it's a brilliant kind of platform, isn't it, for the sort of the hobby, and there's a few people to follow that post the most incredible photographs, and you're like, I've never seen that before. That's brilliant. You know, just was because I think that it might have been one of the places where I first saw the rainbow, and I was like, oh, that's glorious.
That's what an aeroplane.
The
XF11 and the XF12 were both fantastic looking aeroplanes, but the Rainbow is probably the finest piston-engined, four-engined aircraft ever to fly in terms of looks.
Is it a stretch to say that it's the most beautiful four-engined piston aircraft ever?
No, it's definitely, it's in the running, isn't it? It's in the running. You know, I like the XF11 looked brutish and you know, I like that. And again, twin booms. It was a nice, you know, I liked it. But in the bikini competition, the Rainbow wins.
And I'm sure, you know, it's not one of those aeroplanes. I'm sure that, you know, a mainstream company would go, oh well, we'll throw a few $100,000 at making a kit of one of these, but it deserves it purely from aesthetics point of view. It deserves to be modelled so that we can build on. And also, some of the companies that are out there at the moment producing pretty much one-offs. Come on,
I think Anagrand have done it, haven't they? But
did they?
Yeah, but my experience of Anagrand is you know they're best left where they're made.
I think if people are wondering what we're talking about, it's this.
There it is.
And the other thing about one thing about the Rainbow is, like we were previously discussing, it's actually a smaller aeroplane than you think.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's not, you know, you look at it, and if you haven't got a sense of scale, it looks like B-29 sized.
It does actually, yeah.
Where it's much more B-17, possibly a little bit smaller than that. That kind of shows you. If you look at the cockpit there, you imagine there's one guy sat in the front there.
Yeah,
perhaps gives you an idea of the size. But no, it's a fabulous looking aeroplane, isn't it?
It is just kind of glorious, isn't it? I mean, it's sort of reminiscent of the Brabazon. When you look at the Brabazon, it's got that.
The nose is very.
I mean, obviously much smaller than that, but it has that kind of look to it. And another one that came up was one of the developmental aircraft for the Hustler that came up. There was a photograph that was posted yesterday with podded engines, twin engines, and the sort of the weapons pod that sort of came further out past the nose. I'd never seen that picture before, and I was looking at it and thinking, wow, that's a really different. The rest of it looked pretty similar, like the wings and everything, but it sort of had that kind of look. And there's another one as well that the world deserves a brand new tool.
We're long overdue a new Hustler.
I mean,
you could possibly get me interested in a 48 scale one, but a new 72nd scale Hustler, which is correctly dimensioned.
Indeed.
Would be,
I mean, certainly in terms of, I don't know how you feel about this, but certainly in terms of jet bombers, that's the most beautiful jet bomber ever made, bar none. I think that's almost beyond dispute. You look at it, and from wherever you look at it, it is just magnificent looking, even with that pod underneath.
I got to say that XF12 doesn't do anything for me. Looks horrible. Just Yeah, it just looks like a Brabazon that went wrong. So
Did,
Actually, it
did
looked like a Brabazon that went right.
Did he not retire earlier? Has he not resigned?
Yeah,
but
well,
I'm still,
yeah.
I'm hanging on in a caretaker capacity. So
I mean, have you had a bit too much sun today? How was that? That's like saying, you know, we go back to that point, didn't we, where somebody said that they thought that the F-86 Sabre wasn't a very pretty aeroplane. Oh, the Hunter was the other one, wasn't it? The Hunter was ugly. That was how it came up, which was.
It's clearly wrong, but having said that, I'll still take the F-86 over the Hunter.
Oh, the F-86 is head and shoulders the better looking airplane, without a shadow of a doubt. Did we debate this? Did we go any further than we all agree?
Yeah, I think we did. I think we had an extensive Hunter dissection, shall we say?
We did. How it was a really dull aeroplane.
I just think, you know, people who say that the P-51H looks better than the P-51D, I don't get it. I mean, the P-51H just looks like it's on steroids. It's just, I don't get that.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Drew. Apart from the fact that it's smaller and lighter than the P-51D, you're almost right.
Yeah, but the P-51H looks like.
But can we just accept that you're wrong and move on, please?
It looks like a P-51D that's been designed by somebody who doesn't know what a P-51D looks like. It looks like when you look at the history of kit manufacture, the P-51H looks like the original kind of Revell P-51D. It just looks wrong.
Is he trying to upset you, Drew, or is?
It's all right. It's fine. It doesn't matter.
Right, we'll move on. Before
very quickly, Phil Prisker's just put on there something that is. I have a tendency to agree when he's talked about the B1.
Well, that was my first thought, was a B-58 and the B1.
So I think
the B1As.
I think the Hustler is a better looking airplane, but there is no denying that the B1B is.
See, for me, it's the early B1As in overall white.
Just glorious looking. Just the most beautiful. It is so beautiful. I mean, it's F-15 levels of beautiful in my eyes, and we all know what I think of the F-15. So,
yes,
beautiful. Yeah, it's the F-51, P-51H, D from me. Anyway, so moving on from our debates about jet aircraft.
I'm just going to say, actually, in the Sean Connery comeback Bond film, the unofficial one, Never Say Never Again, which is on television today, and I think somebody described it as it's the James Bond film that looks like it was made for television. But there's a bit in that where they're supposed to be arming up some B-1Bs with cruise missiles. And when you see it, you'll notice it now, is that the aircraft that they're supposedly loading up with B-1Bs is actually one of the Concords at Duxford.
Excellent.
Oh, really?
Wow. Yeah. They put some fake doors on it, but when you see it now, you go, oh yeah, those are Concorde engines. So
something
anyway.
Can I just take this on a slightly different track? Something I noticed when I went to Duxford went into the American aircraft hall there, and I had a very close look at the SR-71 that's in there, because frankly, you do, don't you? You have a look, and there was something on the SR-71 that I noticed that I've not noticed on a kit before, and I wondered whether it was just something I hadn't noticed, or whether kits have got this wrong over the years and everything. The SR-71 is an astonishing looking machine, from whichever angle you kind of look at it. But I noticed that on the nose, as the chine goes down the side of the fuselage and it runs alongside the underside of the cockpit, so it runs. It's like a lurks, isn't it? Basically, it runs along.
It's a chine.
It's a chine, isn't it? It runs along the side of the fuselage. But when it gets to the point where it's just by the side of the front cockpit, it bulges up. It doesn't smooth into the nose. So you've got that chine that runs like that, and then as it goes into the nose, you expect it to go into the nose and go and just create this sort of smooth shape. On the one that's at Duxford, and I'm assuming this is the same on all of the SR-71s, and is perhaps a carryover from the A12, is that as it goes along the side of the fuselage, it bumps up and then drops into the nose. It's not smooth. And I looked at it for quite a while and I thought, I don't remember seeing that on a kit. Every kit I've seen, I'm sure it has just been like a smooth flowing shape and it misses that bulge. but it is a very noticeable bulge as it goes into the
So is that
the
before
nose.
it actually gets to the nose cone?
Yes, it's
I
like
was going to say because the SR-71 had a variety of different noses that could be.
Well, no, this one is under the cockpit. It's actually part of the fuselage. So if you imagine that the nose is that shape as it goes along the fuselage, so it's curved. When it gets to that point, it lifts up and blows up onto the nose. And I was like, I've never noticed that before. Is that on the kit? Is that something? You have a look at it. It might. I'm sure I'm not imagining that this is the case, but it's definitely got a hump that runs up into the nose. It's not smooth. And it was very noticeable on that aircraft, on the one that they've got in. Isn't that the last one one of the last ones that flew? The one at Duxford.
I don't know the history of the one at Duxford.
Serving right. But yeah, noticeable odd shape on that. And why I bring this up is because the SR-71 has got, with the fact that Revell have got their kit out and and all of those kind of things, it's noticeable.
There we go. A cruise missile, Tomahawk cruise missile being loaded into Concorde.
Actually, it's not. Just to be pedantic, it's not a Tomahawk. But
it's not a Tomahawk. You're right. But
and also,
I hope they're going to fold that tail down before they put it in.
It's Concorde, Drew. It's not going to fit. But,
well, it won't with the tail up like that.
But actually, that's quite a smart bit of filmmaking there, because it was only when it was pointed out to me did I suddenly realise, oh God, yeah, it's Concorde.
But actually, it serves its purpose. That
it does, because I just thought, oh, they've obviously been filming that on a, filmed that at an airbase in England where there's where there are B1s. Of course, the telling thing is that you don't actually see any B1s in the film. The only B1s you actually see are some miniatures that are done by John Dykstra. So yeah, weird. There you go. Concorde was a B1 in the unofficial terrible James Bond film Never Say Never Again. There we go. We will move on. We'll try and
galloping through tonight, aren't we? This is like an Iron Maiden song.
I tell you what,
this is like the audiovisual equivalent of the Trooper.
It is. I got a bottle of that in the fridge, by the way. Strictly speaking, we've only got 15 minutes left, but I get the feeling we're going to overrun tonight somehow. So we've got this also from ICM, and this is their 48 scale Junkers 88. And this is the mine clearing version. The cable cutting version. And they've already released their Junkers 88 kit to acclaim, and here is another variant on it, and I think it's worth realizing that up until relatively recently we had an absolute dearth of decent 48 scale Junkers 88 kits. Going back in the midst of time, there was that AMT kit, which was questionable. Then there were the Hobbycraft kits from the late 1980s, which were even more questionable. And I think there was quite an intermission until who was the next one? Did the Junkers 88? Sorry, Dragon. Yeah, that's it. I've got the Dragon ones. The Dragon ones are okay, but they fit like a pig. So it's nice to have.
So really, the Dragon ones are okay, but they fit like a Dragon kit.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, they fit like a Dragon kit. I've got their Mistel, which I really kind of like, really wanted that kit, and I've still got it. I never built it, but that's not the point.
You built this as a Mistel, haven't you, Spencer?
I did. I built a Mistel from this kit. I used this kit, and I used the basis of this kit, and I used Edward's 109F. At the time, and I replicated Tony Clement's 32nd scale build. You might remember from mid-80s that he built using ID models VAC form Junkers 88, and I replicated his build. It's a really nice kit to put together. The ICM Junkers 88, it's lovely. It goes together really well, and it's nicely detailed, and it is it's a kit I'd like to build. And I think haven't they released a Mistel as well,
Yes.
Haven't they done a 48 scale one? And I think the one that they've done is in the color scheme. The colors, I did the prototype, I think, which is the one that Tony did. I literally replicated his model, but it's a great kit, really nice. If you've not built one, it's an ICM 48 scale kit.
Yeah, and it's just from when they were making the massive leap in capabilities that they went through about 7 or 8 years ago. But no, I mean, I'm with the comment section here. I really want late 88 Night Fighters and 188s to be done from this base tooling, and as soon as possible, please and thank you. I've got the special hobby boxing of the C6 of this downstairs. I'd like to get round to at some point. But otherwise, I'm really waiting for. I would like an A1 to do a Battle of Britain one, and also, but for me, G's, late G's for Night Fighters, and 188s. Which, I mean, the 188 was a fantastic aeroplane. So I would really like that. I've got one of the Revelry boxings of the Dragon 188 downstairs again, which I didn't get that long ago, actually. But I just know that I know Jerry Doyle built one not long ago, if he's still here, and it looked fantastic. But I would really like ICM to get on board with late 88s and 188s.
So I've always liked the smooth nosed. I always liked the smooth nosed Night Fighters, and in fact, goodness me, this is going back nearly 30 years ago when I was at Telford, and somebody had managed to get the AMT 72nd scale ones in, and this was at the tail end of SG disappearing off the face of the earth, and the short while where AMT kits were available, straight from the source. But I've got their Junkers 88. I don't think it's a bad kit.
It's a fantastic. I know that a lot of people said there are a lot of accuracy issues with it, but I built it when it was released, and it was a fantastic model. A really, really enjoyable model to build. And also, Zvezda have done 88s and 72nd, haven't they?
Yeah, we got an absolute glut of them now. And Revell did a brand new one a while back, I think, didn't they?
Yeah, and they've done an A1 from that tooling as well.
Yeah, and a 32nd scale one. So yeah,
I mean, in 72nd scale, we've had Hasegawa, Revell in recent years.
At some point, I'm going to do a 32nd scale Mistel. I've sort of thought about just that Revell kit's great, isn't it? That 32nd scale one, it looks really nice. So I do fancy doing one in 32nd. I remember being so taken by Tony's model and thinking, oh, that looked really good. It's massive, isn't it? Just this huge kind of thing. I think this one is sufficiently different, though. With all of the scabbed on bits and bobs. To make
I like that. It's a really interesting model, isn't it? That with the cable cutting gear on it and stuff.
Yeah, I think it'd be really cool. And it's an 88. Junkers 88s are one of the twins that people loved, aren't they? And so it doesn't take you much to want to build them. There's always plenty of. I wonder what the scheme's going to be like in this. I would imagine they're fairly limited, aren't they?
I would imagine it's going to be probably a 70, 71, 65 scheme. I don't really see it being too normal, too different.
Let's have a change of pace, and this will cheer you two up, because this is all stuff that's right up your Strasser. And this is Furball, and they've announced a whole slew of decal sheets or decal sheets. And what have we got here? 48 scale F-15 A's, C's, and D's. Yes, I can feel the nods of approval coming from Shropshire and West Somerset.
They've got the Icelandic ones on there, and that just is enough for me, really.
Yeah, Icelandic with CFTs on board. There we go.
With the tanks, with those tanks on. Look at it. Just look at them. They're just so lovely, aren't they? Pretty much.
And then we have.
Do you know what? I have to say that I've really warmed to those top three, and I can see me doing one of those Heritage Eagles.
Spencer, go to your room.
I know. But yeah, it's what can you say? But I mean, there's certainly the early one, the grey, the single seaters.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Now, even for somebody like me who's is a little bit of an F-16 kind of like skeptic, but I only do it to wind Tim Maunder up. There are some interesting schemes there, especially like the one at the bottom with the Southeast Asia camo on the fin.
Yeah. Bear in mind there is one in Southeast Asia camo all over now as well.
Yeah, but I like subtlety, really, you know. But there are some nice schemes. I mean, all at the moment. Furball have just kind of like put the splash cover pages up for these schemes. But yeah, 17 F-16C schemes on that sheet. And if you can't find an F-16 there to float your boat, then you know.
I've got to say, I like the weasel schemes. They're kind of subdued, aren't they? But when you start putting all the weapons on them, I do like those. And also those new overall dark grey jets look quite cool, don't they? I think Caracal covered a load of those in 48 scale.
Yes, yeah, that's a scheme that doesn't seem to have become standard, as in they're not actually recycling aircraft specifically for it, are they?
No.
Aircraft, I think, are getting it as they go through for a normal repaint, but it still doesn't appear to be all that widespread.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting those Pacific Air Force schemes that they've kind of gone backwards, haven't they? They're almost retro schemes in terms of how they've approached tail markings and that kind of thing. It's like they've turned the clock back 30 years and said, you know what, we don't have to worry too much about subdued markings and overall grey schemes and that kind of thing. Let's have some bright. They're almost like Air National Guard markings on them. And I really do like them. The one, it's sort of hard to see. There's one, it's got like a black tail. It's is that what is that on there? Is it a wolf's head or something on there? It's hard to say from here. I quite like that one as well. But I have to say that the two that stand out, the two at the top, the one with the yellow markings and the one with the blue markings on the tail, they look really pretty. So it's a furball sheet, isn't it? Just geez.
Yeah, I've got that one. I've got that sheet already. That's a 2013. That so that's a reissue. I built one from that sheet. But Guffair C 1.5s.
Yeah,
and then we also have going back in time. We've got some SBD Dauntlesses in 48 scale, 18 schemes. And yeah, some nice schemes. There's some nice ones there. I do like those Atlantic schemes. I always have. I just think they look rather smart. But we've got a couple. We've got two there in olive drab and neutral grey, which is interesting. That's an unusual Dauntless scheme.
Well, they're A24s, aren't they? They're A24s rather than SBDs. But yeah, those they are in. They got the big tail wheel. Big tail wheel.
My favourite on that one is that overall pale grey scheme. I think that's really attractive. I know I'm going to get shot to pieces, but I really can't abide that three-tone scheme. The white intermediate.
No, I'm not a big fan of it either.
Yeah,
I quite like the ones with the red bordered star and bar, but other than that, I'd say my favourites on this sheet look to be the Atlantic scheme, one of the torch ones, and the early one with the with the early meatball roundel. But
yeah, the white and intermediate blue. I assume that's intermediate blue.
Yeah,
one is nice, isn't it? It's good to see options though and Furball are kind of known really for doing modern subjects and jets, aren't they? But it's
it is definitely a step outside of their normal. Outside of their normal territory, isn't it? But
it is, yeah, definitely.
It's funny. I got the Hasegawa kit when it came out in 1995. Really, 28 years ago, 27 years ago, 27, 26. No, how many years ago is that? 2092. That's 27 years ago, and that was nice enough. And then, literally within 2 years, the Accurate Miniatures kit came out, and that kind of like up to the game a bit more. The Hasegawa kit, by comparison, is very vanilla,
basic.
Yeah, it's not offensive, but it's very stripped down and kind of like it's kind of like it was at a stage where Hasegawa started to kind of, it was like they were starting to lose heart with aircraft. Discuss.
No, it's just it's at a time when Hasegawa were doing solid but basic kits, especially in 72nd and 48th. What you were getting was a canvas, not massively detailed.
And finally, from the furball releases, and hang on to your hats, gents, because I think there are some absolute corkers on this sheet.
I mean, the problem is it's such an enormous model in 48.
Yeah.
I think I gave the one that I got. I passed on to Tim, I think, because I kept looking at it and thinking it's just the Hasegawa 72nd one, yes, but in 48 it's just too big. But I love those glossy blue Sky Warriors.
Yeah, look good, don't they? I like the electronic one, in the camouflage. It's just beautiful. That's it. But what a paint job that is. It's
that's a lot of work, isn't it? That's a lot of work.
Yeah. There's it's I think it's a kit that passed through my hands when I was at Military in Scale. I think I passed it on to Alan Furbank. It was just too big, and also I don't think he was overly enamoured by it was the Trumpeter kit, wasn't it, when it came out? I don't think he was overly enamoured by
the Trumpeter kit you sent to me. The Trumpeter kit is the one you sent to me.
Right, was it?
And I passed it on to Tim in the end. And it was just it appears to be doing the rounds. It's just it's okay, but it's just so big. But some of the schemes there, certainly the glossy blue ones appeal to me. Talking about Eagles. Have you seen that new company from Germany, PK Decals, I think they're called? They've just released a couple of sheets. I saw it came up on my Facebook feed today. They're printed by Cartograph, but they've done a couple of sheets called Eagle Country, which is all Bitburg and stuff like that based.
Oh, nice.
Eagles,
which would appeal to Sir Mike of Reeves.
Well, I'm thinking it would appeal to us as well, because it's got early F-15As as well in full color markings and compass grey schemes and stuff. So that kind of mid-late 70s. European Eagles, just absolutely glorious.
I'm sure I have amongst this pile the scheme that I'm planning on doing, which you'll be surprised to hear is another one from William Tell, which is one of the with the chevron on it. I think that's from William Tell. I seem to have this kind of thing at the moment of like I like building stuff that from Reforger. That's sort of my modern era Reforger exercise. I love everything from there. And the other one that I'm particularly focused on is William Tell. I seem to be looking at stuff from
in the early 80s there were some fantastic schemes at William Tell, wasn't there? All the Phantom Rose arts and stuff like that. And,
going through the Decal collection, I found a set of Decals for 32nd scale sheet, and the name of the company will come back to me. 32nd scale for Michigan Air National Guard. It is Michigan, isn't it, with the black and yellow checks?
Michigan,
yeah. And for Tamiya's 32nd scale kit, and I was looking at it going, I have a Decal sheet here. I now want to go out and spend £100 on the Tamiya F4 so I can use this set of Decals. But you're right, though. Those schemes were glorious back then, weren't they? They really were. Fabulous kind of colour scheme.
Mark Williams says, I built the 48 scale well. Thank goodness for the wing fold. Indeed, Mike, that is the correct answer. If you're building a naval aeroplane, fold the wings. It's that simple. There will not be a discussion about that. That is the basic.
No, there's no discussion. There's no discussion about it. You're wrong. Anyway, moving on.
Yes.
Moving on.
No room for discussion.
Moving on. Arma have announced another variation on their superlative Hurricane Mark II. And this is an A/B/C in DEP markings.
Great piece of box art.
That's beautiful box art, isn't it? It's absolutely stunning. It's got a ginormous decal sheet with, essentially it's a decal sheet for 3 complete aircraft, as is Arma's want. And of the schemes, they give you one from 87 Squadron, 43 Squadron, another 43 Squadron, another 43 Squadron. There's a lot of 43 Squadron aircraft here. And 175 Squadron, 174 Squadron, 87 Squadron, and another 87 Squadron aircraft. So it's a nice mix of schemes there. You've got some in dark green, ocean grey, black. Some appear to be dark green, medium sea grey and black, and an overall black one. But I think anybody who's built the Arma Hurricanes knows what they're in for. I mean, they are absolutely stunning kits. Not necessarily complex, just very well designed. This boxing does come with a whole raft of 3D printed goodies, including some bombs, some exhausts, and the cannon muzzles as well, cannon fairings rather. I mean, we were all cock-a-hoot with Arma the other month when we were doing our Arma April season. But Arma really are just pulling out the stops, aren't they?
Take my money.
Yeah. Yeah, that's utterly
I like
fabulous.
the black. The black one appeals to me greatly in that case.
Do you know what? The black ones have never appealed to me, but that box art makes it appeal to me. That is such a beautifully executed black on that piece of artwork there that it just really, really makes me want to build a black Hurricane.
I'll tell you what, that artwork, that's a tricky thing to pull off because everything's quite subdued in that. But the artist has managed to get that all the kind of like the light and the colours and everything, and that I'd hang that on the wall. That is absolutely stunning artwork. And he's got that kind of like either early morning or kind of like early evening light to perfection. That is just absolutely beautiful artwork.
Yeah, it is. I agree.
It's almost as good as some of the recent Hella stuff, isn't it?
The recent what?
Hella stuff.
Oh, right. Which ones are you thinking of?
It was sarcasm, John.
All right. Yes. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking. Yeah, we're talking about. Yeah, all right. No, it's been a long day here, and I've been in Weston-super-Mare. Come on. Oh, hello, viewer Jared, if you're watching. I did bump into him at the helicopter museum model show today. I didn't buy a damn thing there, gotta say, apart from a cup of tea. And that was it. And then I exited there after about an hour and a half and went to Sandford Station and had 2 slices of cake and 2 cups of tea, which is very nice. Right, we've got some Italeri reissues to talk about now, and essentially these are Italeri reissues of old Eschi kits. And first up here is their F5A. Now, if you've never, ever seen the F5A kit, it is absolutely glorious. It's just a thing of beauty. I've got probably about half a dozen of the original Eschi boxings up in the attic. But it is just... it's a stunning kit, isn't it, Drew? I know you've built it.
I've built it. I've built it many times, and I've got quite a few of them lying around here in boxes, as you say. It's just one of those ones that for a while, like 15 or 20 years ago, you could find these for like, piles of these for like £2 each at shows.
Yeah, that's where I got mine.
And you could just kind of stack up on them, and then eventually you ended up getting rid of some of them because you have more than you're ever going to build. But at £2, it was like, oh, I didn't spend £2, I saved £5.
Exactly. Oh no, that's a vehicle. Wrong one.
I was going to say that's not an F5.
No, it's not an F5. No. The decal schemes in the kit look to be very, 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 very nice. We've obviously got the Dutch one there from the box art. There is a rather nice Spanish one, and this goes back to scale aircraft modelling for me when Mike McAvoy reviewed this kit when it first came out. The late great Mike McAvoy, I should qualify that with. And he built a Spanish one. I don't know, of all the schemes in this particular boxing, that's probably the most subdued one, but I just think they look glorious.
They were painted silver, weren't they?
Yeah, painted silver, but I just love those schemes. There's a rather nice Vietnamese Air Force one in the Southeast Asia camo. There is a Bolivian one.
No, Bolivian. That's. I thought that was Venezuelan.
It says Bolivia there. Perhaps I'm wrong. Oh, okay.
No, it says Bolivia. It does say Bolivia. All right, yeah. I just assumed it was Venezuelan, but no, it says Bolivian.
Bolivian, and that's nice.
That's nice.
I do like the look of that. That's rather nice. But yeah, so Italeri are bringing that back, which is super. I'm actually hoping that I get the call this year to actually put one of those together for the hobby company, because, as I say,
it's a Norwegian one on that decal sheet as well.
Yeah, there was a Norwegian one on the sheet. Yeah,
there's a Norwegian one as well, isn't there? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
that Norwegian one looks great, doesn't it?
Yeah. There's something going on with that. There's plenty going on with that Norwegian one, isn't there? That's an anniversary.
Yeah.
Oh, that didn't come up on the artwork page for some reason. I'm just checking.
That's a brilliant decal sheet. I like to, you know, there's plenty of choices in that, isn't there? And they're clever enough to offer those choices within the kit and make you want to buy more than one kit, because, you know, the Dutch one would look great. That Norwegian one would look brilliant. I agree with you over the Spanish one as well. That's quite a nice, neatly subdued thing. I'm just going through these are the only schemes that are actually up on the Italeri web page. So weird. Okay, there is a Norwegian one there as well. But yeah, I do like that Canadian one. That's
the Canadians did a lot of aggressor F5s in the latter years. An awful lot of aggressor.
And by and large, Italeri, I think their decal sheets are either done by Cartograph. They are Cartograph sheets.
Zanchetti, isn't it?
Yeah, so you're going to be guaranteed good quality on that. They also have released schemes and details for their Sea Harrier. Now, this is just a straight reissue of the one that they did a few years ago. There's no real change to the decals in this one, and obviously this is like the F5. This is another old Eschi kit, but we say it's another old Eschi kit, but like the F5, these Sea Harriers are still the best kits.
Yes, best 72nd scale Sea Harrier, and it's not even close, really.
Yeah, exactly. There are the schemes in this boxing are, you get an Indian one. There is a 801 NAS aircraft, and there is a 700A flight aircraft. The problem is, and you can see this on the decal sheet, is those the Type D roundels are completely wrong. Those proportions are just off, which is a shame, because you know, they tend to do very good decal sheets with a Cartograph, you know, but in this instance, unfortunately, it appears that the Type D roundels and the Indian roundels, they've just got the proportions of them all wrong, which is annoying. But other than that, you know, it's a nice kit. I mean, I built the Harrier GR1 year before last, which, apart from a couple of little bits of age kind of problems with the molds, it's still built up quite nicely. And I do believe, Spence, you're building a Sea Harrier FRS1 at the moment.
No, that's me.
That's you. No, all right, well, I'll call you Spence then.
Yeah, Drew. No, not me.
No.
Yeah, although I do have all of these Italeri Harriers, and I have sets of all of the intakes from Freight Dog as well to go with them. And I do agree with you on that. So I have a GR3, Aviator, and also the Sea Harrier. And I've never built any of them. I haven't built any of these kits at all. It's not something I've done. But I plan to at some point have a go at them. So see what I can kind of come. It's been a while since I built a Harrier.
I think I've built them all, but I've built a lot of the Sea Harriers in the past.
Yeah. So I've been keeping up to date with yours, actually, Drew. See how you've been getting on. And
actually, it's in its box at the moment. I seem to be really struggling for Mojo at the moment. I seem to run out of steam on projects about 3 days in at the moment. So currently, the Gamma Goat is in a big bath of isopropyl alcohol to strip it off, because I really didn't like the way the airbrushing went, which we discussed, I said something yesterday that I've really got to work on my freehand airbrushing, because it was just, I wasn't happy at all with it. So we're stripping that back, and so I picked up that little Edward 48 scale Zlin, the 526 little aerobatic thing, and I'm slamming that together at the moment to see if I can keep some mojo going, shall we say.
I think that freehand airbrushing thing is a skill that you easily lose. I'm with you on that. I've become so reliant on additional masking, soft edge masking, that I've lost my ability to spray as finely as I used to be able to.
Yeah, I think I mean, a lot of it for me is patience. I have to think back and remember that freehanding the camouflage on like a 72nd scale Spitfire, you know, if I sprayed the grey overall and then airbrushed, you know, freehanded the green on top, I would spend 4 to 4.5 hours at my desk freehanding that camouflage. And now I kind of think of it as something that should take 20-25 minutes, and it's kind of dialing that back and thinking, no, I need to start spending the time I used to spend getting this exactly right.
I agree with you. I remember when I did that Sukhoi fitter, which was a 3-tone camouflage on it. I spent 2 full days on freehanding that camouflage. I think I spent the thick end over the grey and then the upper surface camouflage. I think I spent nearly 20 hours just spraying the camouflage. No weathering, decals or anything, just freehanding that camouflage until I was satisfied with it. It is one of those things that you almost assume that it's going to be quick, but it kind of isn't, because you're constantly adjusting that line, aren't you, and getting everything kind of perfect. But that was a hideous thing to do. But now I've become, like I say, I've become kind of reliant on silly putty and.
Well, the thing is, for most of the stuff in 72nd and to a large degree 48th, masking is going to give you a more accurate finish anyway.
Than
freehanding, but it still kind of rankles on the occasions when I need to, or want to, in fact, sit down and do some freehanding, that I appreciate just how perishable a skill it is.
Yeah,
you know, you've still got all of the, you still know all of the theory. But then you just look at it and you go, oh no, that's just not gone right at all. And it's as much you. Other people are looking at what I've done and going, that looks brilliant. Don't change a thing. It's fine. And I'm looking at it and going, no, I'm not happy with it.
Yeah, I got to say, one of the models I saw at the show today, this was Jared's special hobby Fiat CR25, and it was absolutely glorious. That camo was absolutely amazing. And I was chatting to him about it.
It looks really gorgeous,
yeah. He took me through the process and everything. And yeah, apparently he got the green down, then the brown sections, then finally he went in there and did all the sand.
You can see the breakdown of that. It's absolutely it's absolutely gorgeous. And also counterintuitively, I've never achieved better freehanding than I achieved with my Badger 200 single action.
Yeah, weirdly.
Yeah. And there's also there was Jared's Revell Mackie C200
in the background.
Yeah. We had some lovely models on display today. But that really was somebody who had their eye in doing airbrushing that time. But I think he'll admit that it was labor intensive. I think is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, I mean that's got to be that. You know, that's got to be tens of hours of work.
Yeah, exactly. And we had a picture sent to us by a viewer, Spence, and apparently, yes, this is what he's talking about with that. What's going on with an SR71 nose?
There you go. See, it's not smooth.
It's clumsy, isn't it?
It bulges up. It's like somebody's put their thumb into the side of the nose. It's not a smooth. It's not a smooth shape at that point. It blows up. Somebody, I think, did make a comment and said that they think that there was changes were made to the front end, but
yeah, I mean the thing is, if that break just at the front line of the windscreen there, that clumsy break, there was about 3 or 4 different noses that were put on SR71s depending on the mission. There was a synthetic aperture radar nose. There was a camera nose. There was I think there was an ELINT, electronic intelligence nose as well. So depending on what they were trying to, you know, the information they were trying to suck up, as it were, There were different noses that were much like the U2s today, where they just plug a different nose on for the particular mission.
Which kind of makes me wonder if you're sort of building, you're building a model of one of these airplanes that it's very sort of time specific then, or very mission specific in terms.
Yeah, certainly very mission specific. Certainly very mission specific.
It was just something I thought was fascinating. I'd never noticed it before. I didn't appreciate that was the case, but it was a very noticeable shift in contour. So I just thought that was an interesting photograph to show you if you're building one of these aeroplanes. Yeah.
See Jared there saying 6 weeks in total to paint the CR-25. Lordy.
There you go.
And I think it's quite important. Very often when modelers look at something you've done and are really impressed with it, and they say, I could never do that. Yeah, you could. It's just practice. It's time.
Yeah.
It's the same with people saying, talking about musicians and saying, oh, I wish I had that amount of natural talent. And the musician's going, no, it's practice. Yeah, but I'll never be able to have that. I haven't got the natural ability for it. No, I practice. And that's what we're talking about, is airbrushing being a perishable skill.
Indeed, absolutely. Yeah.
Practice.
Egg on my face here. It's not Cartograph, it's Zanchetti.
Cartograph.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, it's been a long day. Come on, really.
You said Zanchetti.
I think I said both.
And he completely ignored me.
Yeah, he did. It was like,
yeah, it's like la 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 la, not listening.
Yep.
I just thought he was being rude, Drew. I'm on your side.
Well, we're used to it, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. We'll try and crack through the last few. We'll try and do the the Trooper Gallop to get through the last couple of releases here this evening, just news and stuff or whatever. This is Italeri. Again, this is an old Eschi release, and this is their Ford Escort, the Zach Speed Ford Escort. This looks rather tasty. Quite like these schemes.
I mentioned this the other day, I think on my page, and so because I love the scheme, and I think this model appeared on the front cover of Scale Models back in the day, and it was sort of so taking it. The model itself is supposed to be in need of some work to bring it up to an accurate replica of this car, but I don't care really. I just think that color scheme is fabulous. It just
that was when the Ford Escort had a bit of character, wasn't it?
Well, it's like that. I always liked the Ford Mexicos from the 19 kind of like 70s, the 60s and 70s. When then they went on to this, what was this? Was this the Mark II or the Mark III?
Two, isn't it?
I just love these ones with the great big kind of like beefy wheel arches and everything. I just remember when I was a kid being out and about and you'd see one of these and I just let out a squeal because it was like, oh, look at that. Yeah,
am I right in thinking there were Capris done like this as well?
Yeah,
in the scheme with these sort of blown wheel arches.
Yeah,
and the Escort I think holds. We all have it in such high, affection. Really, if you see somebody driving through town in a Mark I or Mark II Escort Mexico, people just love them, don't they? They'd like, that's just so cool a car.
Yeah, it's every bit the showstopper seeing a Lamborghini drive through town would be.
Oh, without doubt, without doubt. I'd rather see a mint Escort Mexico or I would Lamborghini,
because that means that's a product of somebody's love, not somebody's income.
Yes,
my late uncle used to have a Ford Escort Mexico. Fabulous car. Yeah, how can I describe it? It was a bit nippy.
Yes,
it really was. It went like the proverbial off a shovel. Terrific car.
A friend of mine brought he'd been saving up for forever, and he bought himself a ground-up restoration of a Triumph Stag. He brought it around a couple of weeks ago, and basically all of the things that were issues on the original cars have all been replaced with kind of modern equipment and that kind of thing. And it's got a V8 engine in it, and he took me out for a drive. Honestly, I smiled for the entire time I was in that car. And even Liz came out and had a look at it on the drive, and she went, "Oh my God, that thing is gorgeous." And you look at those cars from that period, from the sort of mid to late 70s, and they were just fabulous looking machines, weren't they? And just glorious. I mean, they have every bit the sort of the sort of visual appeal of like the aircraft we love. You kind of look at
Yeah.
them and go, yeah, I'd have one of those, definitely.
Well, I'm thinking of things like also the Jaguar XJS, the one that was Ian Ogilvy drove in Return of the Saint. I mean, what a car! What a fabulous looking car! Yeah, Lotus Esprit. Oh. See, I always liked. Roger Moore drove a gold Lotus Esprit in For Your Eyes Only because the white one got blown up at the beginning of the film. It's got an anti-theft device and tries to break into it, and the car blows up. So, you know,
I think one of the most heartbreaking things I ever saw when I was a police officer was I was called to a road traffic collision, as they call them.
Yeah.
I turned up to this crash on my own. It was in a little back sort of roads, single lane roads between Solway Ash and Beminster in Dorset, if anybody knows the area. But there was a little ford, and by ford I mean river across the road. And right in the middle of this ford, on its roof, was a scimitar. And the guy was standing out next to it. And I got out my car and I walked towards him and I looked at him and he looked at me and I gave him a sad face. And he kind of went, "Yeah, I know. I only finished restoring it last week." It was just the most heartbreaking thing, and it was, in fact, I believe ultimately it wasn't that badly damaged, and it was going to cost him to get it restored again, but it wasn't a write-off at that point. But I kind of looked at it and just checked it, give him my sad face, and he was clearly okay. It wasn't.
It's almost one of those moments where you just want to give him a big hug and say it'll.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's like, oh no, I'm so sorry.
And why don't we refer to them as road traffic accidents, Constable?
Because there's no such thing as an accident.
Or accident implies no blame.
Yeah, there's no such thing as an accident.
Yeah. No, I was quoting from Hot Fuzz there, but you didn't pick it up. But never mind.
Yes, it was. But I mean, ultimately, he was okay. He literally he'd hit a slippery patch where water was going across the road, going down the hill, and he banked off the Virgin and stuck it on its roof right in the middle of this ford, and it was just so heartbreaking to see. But I think, like I said,
Hot Fuzz, is that the second best film ever made?
Do you know what? People often say, which order do you put the Cornetto trilogy in? And I put them in the order they were made. I still think Shaun of the Dead is better.
Do you?
Yeah. I don't think there's a lot between them. Yeah. I don't think there's a lot between them. But I still think Shaun of the Dead is better than Hot Fuzz. And Hot Fuzz is better than World's End, although World's End is still a great film in its own right.
It is a great film. It's one of those. It's the one film in the trilogy where everybody goes, "It's just a stupid film." No, it's not. It's a lad's night out. With robots. How can that be a terrible film? I have to say,
underrated film.
I watched Shaun of the Dead the other day, and I still laugh like an idiot when he gets pulled through the window. It's just the
but you see, I would say out of that trilogy, I would say Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, Paul. Even though Paul isn't part of the trilogy,
Paul is fabulous. Paul is just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, Paul is very.
But I mean, my favorite bit of Shaun of the Dead is where he comes down from that little that little slide in the garden. And he goes, "Is it all right then?" And he goes, "No." It's just the way he says no, and it creases me every single time.
Yeah,
I think the whole thing, it's got so many little details. You have to watch them about 10 times just to hit out all of the kind of the bits and bobs that are in that.
I think it's probably been at least about 48 hours since neither of them were on ITV2. So
yeah.
Anyway, look, we'll get on to the last item of tonight before we drift off into Sunday Night Film Club. And this is another Italeri reissue. This, actually, I am looking forward to, and I'll tell you why in a sec. Because I do like the Crusader. This is their venerable Crusader kit, and it comes with the British kind of like tank crew figures from the 1970s as well. There's nothing really new in this boxing. The schemes are pretty much the same from the last issue. You get a nice one in the kind of charcoal black the dark grey and the sand colour. You get an overall sand one and another overall sand one. There's the decal sheet. Not much to talk about there. And yeah, if you've never built the Italeri Crusader, I mean, this is a weird thing. When this came out, Airfix literally came out with their 32nd scale one almost concurrently. But Italeri won that race really, because Airfix was sticking with 32nd scale, Italeri were 35th scale, and they won essentially. But yeah, it's I'm looking forward to building this, because frankly I need a project for Warfest, which is Waze Fest rather, which is coming up in a couple of weeks' time, and I'm hoping one of these will actually be kind of in the vicinity. But when I was a nipper, this is Christmas 1978, I think it was 77, 78. I actually did get that figure set as a Christmas present. I built it in about an hour, and I've always wanted to have another crack at it, because I never got the chance to build it with a Crusader, because we couldn't afford the Crusader. So I'm hoping that one of these is going to plonk on the desk, because I'd like to build it as a set and actually build like a vignette around it as well. I know you've got an Italeri Crusader, Spence, because I sent you one.
I have, yeah, and I've also got a full raft of Edward etch for it as well. But this was the very first 35th scale kit I ever built. It was the Italeri Crusader. Closely followed by their M47 pattern. That was the second 35th scale kit. So I built Italeri 35th Arma before I ever had a Tamiya kit. The SDKFZ 251 was the first Tamiya 35th scale kit I built. So yeah, this was the start of it for me. It still goes together really nice. It's one of those kind of kits that you can build and looks pretty good. So yeah, it's a good reissue for them. It's a solid kit, and people like it. It'll sell. So it's a good choice to be released. So
those figures do look a bit clunky, but then I've seen Francois has built a diorama based around this, and his figures look fine. So I think sometimes it's all down to a decent paint job can lift these figures. Certainly when you look at them there, some of the poses are a bit mechanical, I think is the best way of describing them. But I want to go back and revisit this, but actually be able to build it and paint it and finish it and weather it how I wanted to in my mind's eye as a 12-year-old. Hopefully with a little bit more skill and experience these days. But yeah, so it's a solid reissue from Italeri. Like I say, they've timed it for the anniversary of El Alamein, and the Monty figure I seem to remember in this set was actually quite good. So yeah, we'll see what we can do with that as and when one turns up.
Monty perfectly on the front on the box art, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So actually, goodness me, we've come up to 1 minute to 9. We've run over a bit again, but we've actually managed to incorporate everything in the news today, which is good. Which leaves me to say, any other business?
No, not from me.
No, not for me either.
Very interesting evening.
Well, unfortunately, we ran out of time. He lied. I said that we've got everything in tonight. We didn't get round to talking about these Humbrol 2nd Gen acrylics. Ooh. So I'm not going to tell you any more about that. We're going to talk about them on Wednesday, because I've been playing around with them. I've got some stuff here that I've been hand brushing and spraying. So that's the tease for Wednesday. We will talk about those more Wednesday. You around Wednesday, Drew?
Yeah, it should be. Yeah.
Spence?
Yep.
Not me. I'm deadlined all this week, so I'm going to be. I've got a Voodoo and a Spitfire to finish off. So I'm probably I might have to have another kit thrown into that pot as well. So I'm done for a couple of weeks.
That's fine. So, that's fine.
Yeah. So thank you very much for having me on tonight, though. Appreciate that. So,
that's all right. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Just see if there's any final comments before we go. Obviously, I'd like to say a big thank you to everybody who's tuned in tonight. Sorry, I'm going to do my Pat Kiesel thing again. Sorry we haven't been able to come back to all of your comments tonight. Yeah, Lox9 says Tamiya also released Tamiya also released this as well. They did, but I think there's probably licensing issues in that Tamiya get the Japanese the Japanese kind of market for it, whereas Italeri get to release this to the European markets and whatever. Rob Monfils, well, this is mysterious from Rob. He says, should have some news for you on Wednesday.
Da, da, da.
Why, Rob? Do you work for the Halifax? Because that would be really handy at the moment. Building societies. And just any other comments we've got here. Mike Williams says, Lotus, lots of trouble, usually serious. Yes, indeed. Mike Williams also says, Olivia Colman, so funny in Hot Fuzz, as is Bill Bailey. They're all very funny in Hot Fuzz.
This is before Olivia Colman really became the superstar she is now. But she was absolutely brilliant in that.
Yeah. And in fact, I will say the one Hot Fuzz story, and I do like telling, is the fact that we were all in Wales about 5-6 years ago, and you could see the look on Spencer's face as he started to kind of recognise landmarks in the market square. And then,
cool.
And then he turned round. We were in the Crown. And you were just sat there, and you saw like Simon Pegg's Stadvest up on the wall, and it was signed, and you were doing more double takes than that pigeon in Moonraker.
Yeah,
but that was American couple behind us.
Later on that evening, when you'd left, because we were stopping over, we were in the back room of the Crown. The Crown is split into two. And we were in the back room, because there was a Liverpool football match on that night, and they were showing it on the TV. And Liz came in, and we'd eaten. You guys, I think, had gone, and we'd eaten and everything. And she sort of looked at me with that look of I'm not sure what on earth I'm supposed to say. She just went, so let me get this right. You're watching your football team play football, and you're in the pub that is in the middle of your favourite film. You're in the place where they filmed it, and you're surrounded by all this memorabilia. Shall I just leave you to it, and I'll see you in a couple of hours? And I went, please. I was almost crying at this point. It couldn't have been any more perfect. And this guy sort of looked at me and he went, are you okay? And I went, yes. It was pathetic. So
there's that American couple behind us talking, and the woman was saying, why is there all this Hot Fuzz memorabilia in here? I love that film. Well, what's all the memorabilia in here? And about 4 people, including us, turned around and went, this is the pub.
This is where they filmed it.
What do you mean this is the pub? No, this is where it was filmed. And like she was like, she was much like you. She was about the happiest person on planet Earth for a few minutes.
I genuinely think in obviously I've been happier with other things, but at that moment it just felt like the world was perfect, and I will say
before we leave tonight, I will say, of all the jokes in Hot Fuzz, and there are so many jokes that I can sit there, it only has to be on television for 30 seconds and I'm drawn into it again. But of all the jokes that are in Hot Fuzz, the one that still makes me laugh the most is when there's the siege, and the camera kind of like, because Edgar Wright has that thing where he does quick whip pans with the camera, and it has a sound effect, and the camera whip pans around and it says, welcome to Summerfield, and then he does another whip pan and it says customer parking only. And it's not even a joke, but it's funny.
Yeah,
he's like,
everything about it's funny.
Something that is entirely mundane.
Yeah, if you've not watched Hot Fuzz, why is the answer? Why have you not watched it? It's amazing.
All right, it's pasta sauce.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, no. We'll start doing all the quotes that we can't do for a PG rating.
And frankly, it's still about 90 degrees in here. So the sooner I can get out of this room, the better, because I am literally dripping. It's that hot in here. So.
Yep.
Right.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for tonight. I say thank you to everybody who's watched tonight. Sorry we can't kind of go through and give you all individual shout outs, but we do appreciate everybody turning up and watching this nonsense. There you go, Simon Parkinson. I drove a truck in Shaun of the Dead. There we go. So it's all circular. So on that note, thank you everybody. We will be back on Wednesday, and we'll find out what Rob's news is. Ooh. And I'll be talking to you about these second-gen Humbrol acrylics and probably some other bits of news. So until then, everybody, stay safe, stay out of trouble, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.